You mentioned the drug overdoses. Obviously, the opioid crisis, a huge issue in New Hampshire. What are you going to do, if you're the president, to stop this pipeline of drugs that comes up from Mexico and other countries directly into New Hampshire?
So this is the most dramatic one, is I'm actually looking to decriminalize opiates for personal use because we have 8 Americans dying of drug overdoses every hour in this country. We've essentially initiated this massive opiate addiction plague. Here are just the straight facts. Americans are dying younger because of suicides and drug overdoses, regardless of their racial background. Like, our overall life expectancy has declined for the last 3 years, which is almost unheard of in a developed country. I'm in Iowa and New Hampshire, and people will come to me and say, my brother died, my son died. Like, everyone has a story about someone who died that's close to them. And it's disgusting. Like, the fact that we let this happen in our...
The word epidemic gets used a lot these days, but it may be the case that that word is not strong enough to describe this country's recent surge in opioid addiction. America's worst drug crisis ever.
And it's fueling what's happening with the drug cartels, because this is the majority of their business. And one of the reasons why people are trying to migrate into the U.S. is because their towns are being overrun by violence. And this addiction plague is so rampant, it's heartbreaking. There were more opiate prescriptions in the state of Ohio than there were human beings in the state of Ohio.
We're in the midst of the worst addiction crisis right now. Some places like Seattle are piloting a program where they would decriminalize even hard drugs like heroin and are routing people instead of to prison to rehab. Is that something? What about hard drugs, though? I mean, that's the Portugal model.
I'm not there yet. I mean, I just...
Why not?
Because heroin is a killer. You want to push heroin, sorry, I'm not too tolerant to that.
Not dealers, though, people who are addicted and using.
Well, addiction is, we have to treat addiction. That's what I just said.
When other countries have decriminalized opiates in this way, they saw reductions not just in overdose rates, but in abuse rates. And obviously, we'd prefer a country where fewer of us are addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
And so I propose that we stop prosecuting use of opiates if it's a personal use. You're not selling, you're not dealing, you're not profiting, but you're addicted. We need to get you straight to counseling and treatment and not send you to a prison cell. And then we also need to work on trying to curb the supply. But I'm more focused on getting people the treatment and resources they need, because this is an epidemic that was spawned by capitalism run amok. We let these drug companies start infecting our people by saying these drugs weren't addictive, and now here we are. So we have to put those resources back into our communities and say, look, here's a path forward. Purdue Pharma made $30 billion distributing these drugs that have killed so many of our family members and community members. I say we take every dime of that money back and put it towards making our people stronger and healthier.
That's right. Andrew Yang has committed to ending the pointless and cruel war on drugs in favor of the Portugal model. Portugal's response to catching someone with a 10-day supply of heroin is to offer them help, not jail. And how's that working out for them? Well, Portugal saw its overdose death rate drop 85% since decriminalization, where we lost nearly 70,000 people to opioid overdoses last year alone. Portugal lost 20 people. So I wanted to lay on a few of the facts on the war on drugs and hope that he and others may be inspired by Andrew Yang's courage and knowledge and involved with a smart and just position on this issue. Alcohol, heroin, and other drugs in this country early in the last century, and somehow, while we seem to recognize that locking people up during alcohol prohibition was a massive failure that only enriched gangsters and led to grotesque violence, we've yet to learn that lesson about other drugs. In fact, what we did instead was allow Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family to make billions weaponizing a synthetic opioid, Oxycontin. There are about 500,000 people in this country incarcerated today for nonviolent drug offenses, disproportionately, of course, people of color. 500,000 families destroyed. We could have these citizens back and give them the help that they need instead. But even if you don't care about the moral case for decriminalization, remember, if we decriminalize drugs, the Northern Triangle destruction by drug gangs in Honduras and elsewhere would be curtailed. No drug money, no gangs. Nothing could do more to make these countries livable for their citizens, ending the heartbreaking trail of desperate families seeking refuge here. We've been attempting to end drug use through prohibition for more than 100 years. And yet here we are, with the worst addiction crisis in our nation's history. It is time to admit this policy has failed. And while full decriminalization may seem radical, what is truly insane is staying the course. So Senator Sanders, please follow the leadership of Andrew Yang here and bring your voice of moral courage and clarity to end the biggest endless war of them all, the war on drugs. We must not let another 800,000 people die needlessly out of propaganda, fear, and big pharma greed.
The only thing I worry about is that some total unknown that nobody ever heard of comes along.
Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up. Yo, there's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang.